Robynne, you've traveled across the world. You've been spending some time in Africa, and we're hearing a lot about Africa, third world agriculture. And one of the questions is regarding countries like Africa's ability to support their own food system from agriculture production. What are some of your observations from being on the ground there?
Well, I've had incredible opportunities to travel, and most recently was in Malawi and Zambia. And I think that there's a huge opportunity in Africa. And if you think about the history of the world in our lifetimes, we've seen South America move to being a major agricultural producer. We've seen Asia increasingly walk towards more self-sufficiency in agriculture. And the next great frontier is Africa. And they do have productive capacity there. At various points, Africa has been reasonably productive on food. And if we want to talk about food security issues, it starts with the smallholder farmer in Africa and providing them the basic tools to be successful.
So what is the average farm size in a place like Africa?
Well, it's extremely variable because there are very large-scale holders who have vast tracts of land, particularly in places like South Africa. But then the vast majority of them are smallholder farmers, so they're holding maybe an acre.
Okay.
Sometimes not even that.
So would some of those farms be like community farms where it's a village and the whole village works on that land to support the village, or is it more individuals?
It's a mixture, and you have to remember Africa is a big continent, 52 countries, so it varies dramatically by what the indigenous holdings are, by the community environment, by the religious environment. So if you want to talk land issues, communal holdings can be very successful, but one of the biggest issues in Africa is actually land tenure for women. Most of the time, about 80% of smallholder farmers in Africa are actually women, and very few of them have control of their land. The land rests with their husband, and if their husband should divorce them, disappear, pass away, the land automatically transfers often back to the brother of the husband. And the woman who's been working the land is left with nothing.
Well, that was my next question. Are the women are they very active in agriculture in Africa?
I would argue that for the most part they are the primary point of food, both production as well as household nutrition in African agriculture.
Okay, so in terms of the needs, what are some of the things? Obviously, the first thing that comes to mind, whether it's accurate or inaccurate, is like something like improved drought tolerance. Like what kind of things do they need to be able to produce more food?
Well, drought tolerance is a great example, but let's step back and think about what any farmer needs to produce food, and it's really the same for smallholders. It's just on a slightly different scale. So you need access to land and natural resources like water. So if you don't have access to land or secure access to land, you can't be a successful farmer. If you think about the fact that agriculture is a knowledge-based industry, you need access to information sharing. Farmers in Canada get it from the internet and services like yours, and a smallholder farmer in Africa probably needs it from an extension worker who's in their community. And they need it to be able to be shared amongst each other as well. And in addition to information, they need access to basic inputs and infrastructure. So they need access to roads, they need access to seeds, drought tolerant even better, fertilizer, a bit of crop protection, the normal things that you need to grow a crop. And none of those things are a given. It is not a given that they will have quality seed. It is not a given that they will have any fertilizer at all, let alone a good range of fertilizer. And that belies the problem. And then once they grow a crop, which farmers are very good at, smallholder and large-scale farmers, if you give them the tools, they're really good at figuring out how to grow things. Then you have to protect those harvests, because in some of these countries, as much as 40% of the harvest is lost after it's actually brought in. So losses in lack of storage, losses because there's no transportation infrastructure, spoilage in hot climates, huge losses in a place where they can't afford them.
So how do we get that infrastructure in place? Because we hear lots about food aid and trying to get, because of lack of infrastructure, trying to just get help there. In terms of their own food system, how do we get that infrastructure in place?
Well, it's a multi-party engagement, right? So one of the smartest things I've ever heard said about this is, do you want to spend $100 on a smallholder farmer giving them access to inputs, or do you want to spend $1,000 when that person is hungry and spend it on food aid? So you can spend $100 at the beginning of the food chain to get some fertilizer and seed into the hands of a smallholder farmer who may not have the wherewithal to get that initial cash for the inputs they need. And the program in Malawi has been hugely successful, where the government has actually stepped in, focused on smallholder farmers. You actually get a certificate for hybrid seed and for some fertilizer. And that smallholder farmer also has to do a little bit of training. And they take that certificate, they have to pay for a portion of it, but the lion's share is covered by the government. And in a matter of 2 years, they quadrupled production in their country by just getting those very basic things in people's hands. And now Malawi has gone from a situation where it was ranked one of the worst in Africa for hunger, with over a third of their population going hungry on a regular basis. That has now dropped in 2009 to 150,000 people.
So
from 4 million almost.
It's really, those are amazing numbers, and so if we are able to keep this momentum in 20 years, what do you think African agriculture could look like?
Well, I think African agriculture could be quite varied, and I think there are some really big challenges in terms of variability of weather in Africa. That does seem to be a very big reality there. So we will see some crop failures in Africa, but I think if we can generally see the 5 or 6 countries that are really starting to make progress on agriculture get replicated in other places, we'll see agriculture become more self-sufficient. And I think we'll see a nice export stream of particularly vegetables and flowers out of Africa. Already they ship a lot of the world's cocoa. But really the goal has to be a basic self-sufficiency in core coarse grains. And it's not like it's a lost market for Canadians. It's not really that much of a market right now at all.
Yeah. Okay, Robynne, thanks a lot, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks.